I will go ahead and call our board meeting to order. We are starting today with a strategic planning process update. And I believe we have someone here with us, and Beth, you get to kick us off.
Yes, so while we find Lauren and Mutiu, just to get everybody up to speed, I believe I shared with you at the board retreat over the summer that we had done some student focus groups in May. And then over the summer, our tech team and our OSP team did such a wonderful job compiling just all sorts of data that was put together in a booklet for our kickoff teams to review in mid-August. We had a 2-day retreat for our core planning team and then a full-day retreat for our instructional focus team. And we're gearing up now to have our next round of meetings with those folks and also meet with our alignment team. And Lauren and Mutiu from our consultants Performance Fact are here to just provide some updates and take us through kind of a summary of the progress so far and ask for some input from you all.
That's great. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for finding us in the waiting room. It's wonderful to be here. I believe I'll be able to share my screen in just a moment, but I'm looking forward to sharing with you, just as Beth teed up, where we are in our process to date. We had a great start and launch just before the school year started, and we look forward to reorienting you to kind of the full process and giving you a chance to ask any questions as we go through. So I'm going to go ahead and first begin. I know that I've been able to meet with you all a few times, but we have the privilege. I'm excited today that Mutiu, our president and CEO of the company, is able to join us. And he's going to kind of kick things off for us just to provide a little bit of context about the work that we're engaging in with the Hillsboro School District for strategic planning. And Mutiu, you are muted, so you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, how about now?
That's perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Lauren. Good evening, everyone. As Lauren said, my name is Mutiu Fagbai. The accent you hear in my voice is from Nigeria. It's been almost 50 years since I've been in the US. I want to begin by thanking you for the chance to work with your school district. We're enjoying it very much. Although I have not been as involved as Lauren, I'm quite aware of everything that's been going on. So what I'd like to do is take about 5 minutes, just go through 6 stage setting slides and then hand it back to Lauren. You want to drive the PowerPoint, Lauren, if you don't mind?
Yes, Beth, I just sent you a message. I'm not able to share my screen.
Okay, I can share mine.
I don't know if you'll be able to.
No, I can. Okay.
I can't share the screen.
No, you don't, you're gonna do the presentation, right?
Yeah, I can't share it. Hang on, boardroom.
Should be able to.
It's not able to. Do you have the do you have access to the PowerPoint?
We shared it in advance as part of the materials. It says that, yeah, I think there are a couple of people who are hosts or co-hosts, but I can't.
Can you now, John?
Plan update? Is this it?
I mean, you guys have it.
We have it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
So
There it is.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You want to start on slide 1 or slide 2?
Oh, looks like slide 18 on the screen. Thanks, the wrong presentation.
There we go.
Okay, we can slide with slide 2. So thanks. And the next click, please. Yeah, I'd like to start by just framing what we see as our role. We pride ourselves on being facilitators. And what a facilitator does is to guide the conversation, not to command or control. Not that it wouldn't work anyway, but a facilitator does direct. What we do is what we call our own sole purpose. We feel very strongly about it, but as strongly as we feel about the goal of educating all students to high levels, we never impose our will on any of our clients, but we will direct, leaving it up to you to follow. On the next slide, the primary purpose of planning we suggest is alignment. How to get all the arrows on the same page going in the same direction. You'll notice that none of the arrows on the left had to give up its personality or its shape, but what it has to do is to make sure every single one of us or every single community partner group, we're all on the same page, working towards common goals. So planning is a way of aligning people, process, programs, and structure on the same page, going in the same direction. Next slide, please. And if we want all of our partners to be on board, we have to make sure we embrace their voices and perspectives in the planning process. So the approach we take is very expansive, and it's more bottom-up than top-down. We encourage as many diverse voices as possible to be part of the conversation. And we do that through a series of teams. The central team, next slide, please, Lauren. The central team we call the core planning team. That team includes all the various partners, and it is a team that works with my team to steward the whole process and to come up with a finished product. You can think of the core planning team as the integrators of all the input from all the different perspectives. And the team could be as large or as small as you want it to be. And surrounding the core planning team on the next slide are several additional teams to bring more specific or customized voices. We actually start all the work at the 12 o'clock position with student voice. The student voice, as Lauren said at the beginning, includes a survey and also focus group conversations. We have a separate team we call the Instructional Focus team. That team is mostly teachers and ed services folks, and their bias is around instruction. Then the third team I want to touch on is the one at 6 o'clock, and that's a community forum. Long before the plan is done, we'll suggest I would take the draft from the various teams back to your entire community. It could be one session, it could be a series of sessions to get feedback from just what I call regular people. So the student voice, instructional focus, and community forums are required as part of our process, in addition to the core planning team. And you can add the teams in the blue circles. And in fact, I think all of those are part of the work we're doing at Hillsboro. The alignment team, the one labeled AL, roughly 3 o'clock position, I often call that the movers and shakers team. We meet regularly with the board, as you will see on the agenda. The work goes to every school and every department before it's finalized, and also with the leadership team at the school level and at the district level. So the goal again is giving multiple opportunities for every single group that's interested to be part of the exercise. So by the time the plan comes to the board in about 4, 5, 6 months, you will have gone through a series of discussions with your key partners. And that's one reason the most boards usually are quite comfortable coming on board, because board members themselves will have been part of the exercise. And in fact, as I understand, at least one board member was on the core planning team. So that's all I want to do by way of framing. Again, I want to personally thank you for giving us a chance to work with your school district. And I'm going to pass it back to Lauren.
Now I need to unmute. Thank you, Mutiu. You can go to the next slide. We wanted to just preview what have the engagements been to date. And so this slide just represents currently what we have scheduled I will highlight that we actually, after our kickoff dates in August with the core planning team and the instructional focus team, will be having our follow-up sessions with those teams this week. And we're looking forward to that. Those will be held virtually. In addition, we'll have our first alignment team meeting this week. So we're going to take another big step towards moving the work forward. So it's a great time for us to be bringing kind of the work that came out of the August sessions to you today. In October, we'll be there in person, and we'll be kicking off and adding in a new team, which will be the student voice team. And that team is different than the group that happened originally. The original group was really around gathering student voice from elementary all the way through the high schools. But the next team is really going to be a team that's primarily focused on secondary students, where they're going to be having the chance to chime in and respond to and provide feedback on the plan and process. So I'm looking forward to that team being kicked off in October. You can go to the next slide. Well, actually, we'll pause there for, actually, I'm going to pause and just, if we can go back one slide, just see if there's any questions. I know when we were here last time, there were some questions wanting to make sure about the student voice elements. And so I just want to pause if there's any questions about the process so far before we kind of dig into some of the content.
Don't see any here.
None, no questions. Thank you. Okay. As they come, we will take them. All right, we'll go to the next slide. We want to just ground kind of what the work is that we're doing, and we share this to ground and share our perspective and what guides us in how we're supporting your community and developing the strategic plan. And the foundation of our work really rests in our premise, which is that we believe that all students will learn at high levels when instruction meets their needs. And what a student has perhaps not learned well yet, we surmise as something that they have not been taught well yet. And so in effect, when we take a look at student outcomes and we look at student data and we look at evidence of student learning, we can see that as really as an effect, whose cause is really about the quality and effectiveness of the educational practices. And those educational practices are not just what's happening in between the students and the teachers in the classroom, but it's about the teaching practices, the leadership practices, and the organizational practices. And so as we turn to look at some of the data, or have an opportunity to hear your thoughts on the data that we shared, we do that to inform kind of what is the effect or impact of our practice to date. But we know that if we want to have improved or different outcomes for the students in our system, the starting point has to be the continuous improvement of the adult practices in the system. And because those are the precursors to student learning. Next slide. You can briefly, before we have a touch point on the data, you're going to see in some of the data that we presented, we like to think about and represent students as like out of a group of 20. So rather than looking at percentages that can be maybe less personal, we like to think about, if we're in a classroom of 20 students, what are the kind of backgrounds or experiences or differences that we can see in the young people in our classrooms. And as you can see, you have a diverse student community here in Hillsboro. You can go to the next slide. And we also look at the students in terms of their experiences or connections to federal programs. So students who are experiencing disabilities, students who are learning English, and students who are experiencing poverty as well. Let's go to the next slide. So when we talk about what our process is, thank you, we start with data. And that's the first step in our process. And so if you can just click one more click, whoever my clicker is, thank you. And we start with the question of what data do we have? And that's how all of the teams started. And we wanted to give you, the board, a chance to also be seeing and having a chance to preview some of that data. So we start with the data we have, and then we move into analysis. And the first step in the analysis is coming to a shared understanding about what that data says. So we can kind of understand what the data is telling us, and then we start to uncover, well, why does the data look that way? And from there, we can move to then the solution. And that's basically, what are we going to do about it? And that's your plan. You can click the next slide. click through to the next slide. So where we are in the process of the plan is that our teams review the data. They spent upwards of almost an entire day really analyzing and taking a look at the data packet that we provided to you to preview. But from there, they moved on to establishing and really starting circle number one, which is the first part of our, what we call the solution or the plan. And that's to articulate what you want for students. What are your aspirations and goals for the young people in the system? And we start there up front, getting really clear about what we want the ends to be and having a shared understanding of what our ends are that we want for students before we move on to the means to those ends, which we suggest is around instructional effectiveness and then identifying empowering infrastructure to support those. So to begin, I know you can go to the next slide. I wanted to give us I think you can go to the, yes. These are the data sets that we took a look at. We organized the student data book according to the a set of equity indicators, and we've borrowed and adopted the equity indicator framework from the National Academies of Science, Mathematics, and Engineering, if I got that all correct. And so this is how we organized it. And so your data booklet that we shared with you started with the student voice, which was comprised of your student survey that was administered in 2022. You had nearly, I think, about 8,000 students who completed the survey. It also included the focus groups that we conducted, and there were write-ups and just sort of a verbatim reporting from those focus groups. The second section of the data booklet had outcomes data, and then there was access data. We don't have we're not going to dig into a significant, deep dive, but I did want to give an opportunity for each of the board members if they wanted to comment on anything that struck you from the data, from your chance to preview any of the data, or if you have any questions regarding the data booklet at this time. And I'll be listening and taking notes on those thoughts and ideas. And I would love to, hear your comments and your observations.
It was our homework, right?
It was your homework. I know, I was your homework.
Well, I've got pages and pages, but we'll start with whoever would like to start.
I love it.
I'll start, Mark. I feel like the homework I did was being there with you for 2 days. Honestly, and when they introduced this in this notebook with this data, I wish that you all could have been in the room. I wish you could have seen the looks on the faces. I wish you could have seen the depth and breadth of everybody at all, must have been, I don't know, 10 or 12 tables full of people. And we're all going, whoa, I didn't know that. And the kids are saying this, and it was absolutely, it was really exciting to see what the real data is, what people were thinking and how the kids were thinking and what they were saying. And that was, I think, I didn't anticipate that. I don't know why, but I did. And so each group got to move, whether it was elementary, middle school, or high school, and you just learned profound things about that. So if you get a chance to just kind of dig into it, it's absolutely amazing to find out what the voice is at all 3 levels. And it was really awesome because it centered everybody in the room, and we were all from different, from different aspects, and we all had different perspectives. So I thank you for the opportunity. I was absolutely floored by what we did for those 2 days. And that data notebook I still have in my home office, and I'll probably never give it up because it was a wonderful snapshot in time, but a very comprehensive snapshot in time, if I can say that.
Yeah, thank you.
The data notebooks you mentioned, is that what we have starting on page 10?
Yes, if I don't think I can share my screen. I'm not sure if the presenter has the PDF, but yes, it's starting on page 10. Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a question about what some of the numbers mean. a 0 just means even numbers on agree, disagree, and or agree and agree strongly and disagree strongly. Is that what a 0 would represent, like a median?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. So when you're looking at the student survey data, along the first column where it says with those black shaded bars, that shows you the overall positive percentage response rate. So a positive response to the question. And then when we further, disaggregate the data by the different groups, those are color coded to see to what extent do that particular group vary from that average. So for example, on the data booklet, which is page 10 of the data booklet, but I think it's page 27 of your PDF packet, for student engagement, and I'm sorry, I can't share my screen here, but for student engagement, you had 72.6% of your elementary students who responded that they can learn almost anything if they try hard enough. And when we separated out the 3rd through the 6th grade, the 3rd graders were actually 11 percentage points more positive in their response. Their response was closer to 84%, saying that they believe that they could learn almost anything if they tried hard enough. Whereas your 5th and 6th graders were slightly underneath that average rating for your district. Yeah.
So that's what that, so that's what the numbers mean. 72.6 was, so just look at line 1. 72.6, so for what it's worth, I'm a little bit of a data nerd, so.
I love it.
72.6 was and so 11 is not 11 students more, it's 11 percentage points higher than the.
Right.
The
I got
average,
you.
it's always in relation to the overall average,
Oh,
whether it's plus or minus or even.
all right.
Yeah. So the color coding in general, we try to just, there's people who dig in, the data nerds want to dig in, and then the others where it's like, we try to color code it. So if it's darker green, it's generally more positive experience. And if it's darker red, it's more negative experience. And it's to help you see any consequential differences between student groups.
It was very interesting to the people in the room on that day when we realized that something happened between elementary school and middle school. And there was like all this excitement and positivity when they were in elementary school, and then it took a mad dash down. And we're like, what happened to the 4th and 6th graders? And then it started to creep back up. And then when they get to high school, it tanks again. And you're like, what is going on? It was amazing to see.
I wouldn't say it's that great for the 6th graders.
I know, but that was the point. It made you think, well, what is happening in this middle school time besides the hormone thing, but what is happening to the kids that they think so radically different? And again, this was part of the conversations that were going on at the, tables that we had at the.
But the numbers fall off the cliff from the 5th. So is it fairly accurate to assume that the student engagement numbers fall off the cliff between the 5th and 6th grade?
Well,
What that indicating? -12, -13,
Where?
-13, -15.
I'm going to the student engagement. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, this is what we shared with the group, was that the first step is to take a look at that overall average and just ask yourself as a community, like, is that average hitting where we would want it to be? Right. So if we take a look at, and that's the first question. And then when you start to see there's more consequential differences between groups based on each question. But yes, there's a general trending around students in 5th and 6th grade starting to feel less engaged, feeling a little bit like the climate is not as positive, that the student relationships are not as positive. That definitely was a trend across the board.
And what impact do you think a 6th grader have? So you asked them in the spring of 2022, near the end of the most difficult year that every educator can remember. So what impact do you think that played on the fact that they went home at spring break in 4th grade?
That was a question that the team came up with to talk about. So how had their particular learning experience over the last 2 years impacted their connection to one another, right? To their overall was it really telling around like student behavior, students treating each other with respect, things like that. And I think there was a lot of discussion. Yeah, that's sort of the meaning making around it, is what kind of additional supports might they need based on that experience. Yeah.
I could keep going, but
Yeah, if there's
Yeah.
any other comments there, this isn't just a chance to share things that stood out to you. I know there was a lot to process.
Yeah, there definitely was. I think for the student voice section, as I read through that, the strengths that came out to me was the kids' desire to learn. They have a strong desire to learn, and a desire to trust and a desire to be heard. I also thought it was interesting that the desire for teachers and principals who care, and I wonder, what does that mean in this survey? Because I think back to my school years, and there were definitely teachers who cared and were involved, and there were those who weren't. But I don't know. That just struck me odd. And the concerns that they seemed to raise were surrounding discipline. And students wanting and needing boundaries. So how does all this data, I mean, these things that come out of that, is this the future of these teams of deciding, okay, how do we make these things happen? Is that the thrust?
I'm sorry, could you say the last part of what you just said?
It was saying, so all of this data with the teams going forward, is it to dissect this data and develop plans for moving forward and addressing these concerns these students have?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step that the teams engaged in was just to come to kind of a shared consensus about what the main concerns were. And the two that you highlighted, like you highlighted as the strength, being kids are there, they want to learn, and that they even in some ways were saying that they had more positive relationships with teachers in some cases. But the student to student, the peer situation was a lot more of a stress. And so that really led the teams to be thinking first about, well, what do we want to be true? What is our goal, right? What are our goals that we want for kids? And that's where we put our first focus in, naming what we want to be true. We want them to be experiencing a positive climate. We want them to be experiencing peer-to-peer connection. And then we'll take a look at the goals that they came up with after we talk about some of this data. And from there, the next step, we're actually going to be turning to, well, how do we do it then? What do the adults need to do in the system to improve the experience for the young people in the system? We didn't get there yet. We just first named what is the vision for that we want to hold for students. We started with the student learning outcomes first, but you are spot on in terms of where we're headed.
if people have observations they want to share. So how long do you want to spend on this? I spent like 3 hours.
Yeah, so first of all, if you have notes that you want to share, we spent basically an entire day with the core planning team. If you have notes that you want to share, you can share them with Beth, and she can get them to me, and I can integrate them into our overall processing. But yeah, I just wanted to give each board member just at least a chance to elevate anything that really was kind of sticking with you from the experience of looking through things.
I'll just try to hit a couple of things then for me.
Great.
In the third grade, they're working hard to do their best in school, but they don't think anybody else is. And by the time they're in the sixth grade, they're like, yeah, why should I either? Right? I mean, that's if you look at question 2 and question 5, the correlation there.
Yeah.
In the student engagement section. So I can just jump ahead, get out of there a little bit. The experience that our girls are having in high school is dramatically different than what our boys are having in high school.
Yeah.
Is that fairly accurate?
Yes, that we discussed that a lot.
Yeah, like, a little bit, I guess I'm not a girl, so I don't know, but, or never was a girl. So, you know, a little bit of, not firsthand experience, but yes, it was dramatic how, what a negative experience our girl students are having in high school compared to our boys.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that seem about right?
There were many questions, many people in the room who wanted to say, we need to explore this, we need to understand. The kids are trying to tell us something, we need to understand what the kids are trying to tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, it felt like with 8 out of 20 students being white and 8 out of 20 being Latinx, we're overrepresenting the white kids in the survey in a lot of places. Does that seem right?
I would have to look at that. The numbers, it seemed like it was fairly. I thought it was fairly balanced. It was all statistically significant, what we reported. But let me take a look at the numbers.
That's all right. Just if no didn't stand out to anybody else, that's fine.
In high school, white students,
I see more white students than Latinx students responding to the survey.
but just about 200-ish more.
Yeah.
Which feels like a lot.
Right.
Yeah, just 200 is more, but that feels like a lot when the entire thing is only whatever.
Mhm. Thank you, yeah.
When you look at our high school students, I mean, if we're looking for what we should be doing, it seems to me, and a lot, this may again, a lot of it be maybe pandemic driven. Anybody who was in the 9th grade when the surveys happened, went home at spring break of 7th grade, and every senior would have gone home at spring break of sophomore year. So freshmen seem like they're having a pretty good experience, and seniors seem like they're having a pretty good experience. Sophomores and juniors, not as much.
Yeah.
That's that roller coaster.
One of the dialogues of a discussion that I do remember pretty clearly from the core planning team around that point was regarding the kind of wraparound supports and intentional transition points and access to counselors and grad coaches and different things that are set up both at 9th and at 12th grade, and really wanting to be thinking about how are we supporting students at every grade level, right, as we go through, and what does that look like? Yeah, that's great.
Our Black students in high school, while there aren't that many of them, they don't feel safe in our building.
Nope, not at all. That stood out like a big sore thumb.
Very much does. All right. If nobody else has stuff. How long do you want to spend on this?
Oh, we
You want to move on?
I can invite you to share. You can definitely share your comments. I know we started a little bit later than planned, so I do want to give you a chance to see their work in terms of have a chance to respond to the work to date that they've done. So I've taken notes on what's been shared. If there are any other things that are coming up, and certainly as you're noodling on things, or if you haven't had a chance to really dive into all of it and there's time, we'll happily take your comments and thoughts.
On the sort of plus side, I would say in the comments, students saying that they feel like they have access to counselors, that's nice to hear.
Mhm.
That they seem pretty, one of the things that was very revealing in the comments was the semester break in the 7th grade. I mean, so that those kids, again, they went home in the 5th grade, and you don't have a semester break where you change all your teachers and change all your classes in elementary school. So it was the first time so it feels like from the comment section, how dramatically impacted students are experiencing that change from one semester to another is something that maybe we could help address to mitigate some of the negative experiences of middle school. That first time when you went home on Friday and you had ELA, and then you went back on Monday and you had whatever art, and you didn't see that teacher again, except maybe in the hallway when they asked you how you're doing, right?
Right.
And that's very unusual for all of your education experience at that point. So I thought that was revealing in the comments. I know that we put it in the positive comments for the high school students, but I don't love the idea that without a deadline, every day feels like a free day. But okay. On your next thing.
The overall positive idea was the flexibility. That was sort of the overall positive, but I hear that, yeah. Great. Okay, is there anyone else who wanted to make any comments on the data packet before we move forward?
I thought it was a very valuable, interesting insight into the thinking of many of our students, and so I very much appreciated it. I thought, stepping back at a broad level, it strikes me that some of these trends and indications that we pick up on, we don't, because there's no comparator data in this here as to other districts, we don't know if there are things that are specific to our district or if there are things that are being experienced by people and students across the state or the country. So it'll be interesting to find out more about that when we look at potential remedies. Obviously, we want to target areas that need attention, no matter whether they're specific to our district or things held in common across large groups of people, but the way we go about it might be different between the two cases.
Yeah, it's something that I sort of thought that too, like it's something that is a common problem across many districts. Maybe other people, we don't have to invent a wheel. Well, if somebody else got a wheel, we should just use the wheel.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah. And part of how we design our process is we always begin, part of our belief system is that, and actually I think it's the next, is there a next, there's a slide with a quote on it, 3 quotes on it. Yes, it is next slide. Ooh, sometimes I get my slides right. One of the things that we talked about as a team to set the stage for the work is we had a chance to take a look at these 3 quotes and really emphasize the fact that regardless of what's going on outside, and we can look to others for examples, really do believe that the power rests in the community within Hillsboro School District and these teams and the entire community to design the solutions that are going to meet the needs of your community. And so, but through our process, we do look at samples and things as we'll go into planning various pieces, but really we design the process that the majority of the time the team is spent talking and thinking and developing their perspectives. I will say that the 3rd quote on here became like I don't know if it was a clarion call. It was very popular in the core planning team, and then again with the instructional focus team. There's a lot of discussion of the breathtaking opportunities that we have before us, and so I wanted to just give you a chance to see those quotes as we transition.
I want the record to reflect that Beth and I sung the first quote.
Oh, that's right, they did sing. There was singing and dancing. I will say it was the first time that I had that experience. Yes. Need to balance the work with joy.
That part wasn't comfortable for all of us.
It wasn't comfortable for everybody, but it wasn't forced participation. You could sit and watch. Okay, let's if it's possible to actually I think I have it all in here. If you can go to the next slide. If there's any other, before I move forward with this, any other comments on the data that we want to make here before we move on? Okay, so the core planning team worked grounded in the data, thinking about the current state, and we actually talked about, I think the board and we talked about the portrait of a graduate when I visited in April, but they developed a first draft, and it is very much a work in progress. And know that it hasn't been reviewed by any of the teams yet, and it will change and evolve, but we wanted to just share with you the work to date. So if you can go to the next slide. If you'll recall, we talked about the portrait of a graduate when we met. We discussed these two quotes in terms of what our vision, our aspirations are for the young people in our community. There was a lot of discussion and debate going back between these two quotes in terms of different perspectives and things that resonated with folks differently. We can go to the next slide. So this is the first draft, and it includes 4 qualities that are describing kind of our aspirational vision for all Princeton Public School graduates. Wanting Princeton Public School graduates to develop as inquisitive learners, to develop their sense of self-worth, to demonstrate effective interpersonal skills, and to be community connected. And within those 4 larger qualities, the teams brainstormed a set of attributes. Now you'll see some have many attributes and some have a couple. These were, you know, it will go through refinement. Sorry, did I say Princeton?
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
Sorry. It is 10 p.m. where I am. So that's all I can just tell you. I apologize. The inquisitive learner, there were 5 attributes that were shared: to apply knowledge learned across contexts, to possess the desire to learn, unlearn, and relearn, to demonstrate academic skills, identify problems and persevere in their solution, to embrace curiosity, flexibility, and creativity in learning. For self-worth, we want to see students who are invest in physical, mental, emotional, and social health, and who establish safe boundaries for self and others. In terms of interpersonal skills, looking at verbal, written, and digital communication, relationship building, collaboration, reflective learning, appreciation of diverse views, adaptability and flexibility, contextual awareness. And then finally, community connected, to help build a community that is safe and where everyone belongs, be responsible for actions and the impact within a diverse community, and to seek cultural understanding. So this is the first draft of the portrait, and I just wanted to see if there are any observations, comments, or thoughts that you wanted to share for our consideration as we continue to move the draft forward. You might consider if something.
Bia's question.
Hi, I was wondering, I was looking through the statistics and I was wondering if you have a section about the demographic of people who are in, have IEPs and people who have students specifically and students that are in TAG. Is there a section for that, or?
Are you looking to see the data disaggregated by those groups and for the student survey?
Yes.
Yes. So because the student survey was anonymous and students were not asked to self-identify by either TAG, IEP status, or I think English language status, they weren't asked to self-identify in those areas. And so we don't have it disaggregated in that way, because it wasn't usually when districts pull that level of disaggregation, it's still anonymous, but they do a student ID match, because not all students will know, especially at the elementary levels, if they're parts of different programs. But we didn't have that for this, and it was brought up as a desire to see that in the future administration.
In coming up with this portrait of a graduate, did we use the data that we collected from the student voices? I know that we had asked the students in the survey, you know, the top 4 and top attributes. Was that extracted, and this is how this is felt?
The teams reviewed the student voice data and used that as kind of its own reality check towards those elements. But we haven't like cross-referenced to see if it feels like some of the ideas yet are missing that the students elevated. We also will be bringing the draft to the student voice team when they meet in October to have a chance to chime in and help us know what we got, what might be missing or need refinement.
One of the more encouraging things that I observed on that day, in my humble opinion, this is when the rubber hit the road. This is when we really got into understanding what is it that we really want and what do the kids really want. And so you literally, Beth, I don't know, you remember, we had people run around with the data notebook and they would, and we running back to our desk to get the data notebook because you didn't want to forget the student voice. So they would bring, so we're pulling out parts with the data voice and then you run back over and make sure that whether it was in quiz, self-work, whatever. So it was amazing to see people like being advocates. I mean, just being strong advocates for making sure that the student voice was the one that we were doing the strategic plan for. And that probably meant more to me than anything else because it was a constant reminder. Somebody was always saying, hey, what did the book say about, but the kids said this, but we said that. And that made it really super special in a weird way. And I just want to salute Beth for bringing all of these. I mean, when I say herding cats, that's exactly what this was. And Lauren, the fact that you could keep that herd of cats together, facilitating moving the way you did was absolutely mind-boggling. It really was.
So just as I look at these, I would say like a lot of the right in some ways. So self-worth seems like the outlier to me, where the 2 bullet points are kind of the attributes you'd expect of somebody who has self-worth, but like demonstrates effective interpersonal skills. Yeah, you would have written in digital communication. That's sort of part of the definition. And I don't see anything in the self-worth bullet points that says, I have value, I am important, I recognize that my school, community, state, country is better off because I'm in it. Like, so it feels like to me, we're straight to, if you have self-worth, then you would invest in your physical, emotional, and social health. But it seems like we're missing something that sort of says what self-worth is.
It's a belief statement, like believing in yourself.
Yeah, it feels like the others have that. Kind of.
I think you have a good point. But if we could replay the conversation that was going on, some things had to hit the chopping block.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of them.
But it's also only got 2 bullet points and the rest of that one. But yeah, sure.
At this point too, it's all open, right? So
I'm just giving you feedback, right?
yeah, it's great. So I got that. I like what you said. I wrote down, I value and important. I recognize that my school, my community is better off because I'm in it. That's lovely. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? At this point, it will evolve. When you see it next, it will have evolved. So you'll have another opportunity to chime in too. Okay. All right. So this is the sort of aspirational endpoint. And the other key piece in circle number 1 is looking at what are the goals that we want for our students in our community. So can we go forward? I think it's 2 slides. Great. So the core planning team drafted 5 goals for student success. The first and the 5th goal we refer to kind of as the bookends of students' experience. So goal number 1 is all about success in the early years, setting students up for success in those formative foundational years, pre-K up to 3rd grade. On the other end, we have supporting all students to graduate ready for career, college, and life. So setting them up and then being able to send them on their journeys. In the middle, we have goal number 2, which our team has labeled as safe and supported learners. And this really focuses on the social emotional wellness of all students. The 3rd goal is focused on ensuring access and opportunity for all students. And this is really paying attention to ensuring if there's any discrepancies or consequential differences in students' experience or access to education within the system, we want to eliminate any of those disparities. And then the fourth goal is all around kind of an academic focus around critical thinking and problem solving. Go to the next slide. So each of these goals, and this is a little small, but each of these goals, the teams created a list of measures, and the measures are what help us to identify and know and name, like, how are we doing on our goals? Are we achieving our goals? And so for the set of measures, there's between 3 and 4 measures. We usually recommend just having 3, and maybe the 5th goal would have 4, but the core planning team really liked their measures, and so I let them go with more. We'll see how it evolves. But you'll see that the measures are focusing in on, they're kind of written in different ways at this point, but percentage of kindergarteners who have pre-K experiences. That's measure 1A.
How would we as a K-12 district, right, if we could support the ballot measure, whatever, then kindergarten pre-K for all? I mean, like, how are we gonna directly influence that measure?
We have 26 pre-K programs going in our schools right now, which is great. And we can also now roster them in our student information system. Jordan could maybe speak more to that. So we do have the ability to track that now. So
That we have it, yes, but if we pick 50% or 80%, we don't have the ability to influence that unless we start more of them or
We're
whatever.
asking how we can increase that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like this year we added 3. I think Olga's always trying to add, but I think it also is probably partnering too and ensuring that more people have access, not just necessarily in the programs that exist in our schools, but also in the community.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
but it's a lovely
admirable goals, but I don't know
Yeah.
how it's measurable for us as a K-12 district.
Mm.
One of the steps that's coming in the strategic planning process is to put action steps to these goals. So we will have an opportunity to do some thinking around that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think a number of the measures at this point may be in the place of aspirational, both in terms of not yet having the system to measure or not yet having clarity on the strategies to get there. But what we, and looking at the data and going through the process, invited the core planning teams to kind of suspend that level of, we can't yet, to see what they thought was going to have the most meaningful and consequential difference to support the young people in the system. But as you're naming, yes, what would a strategy be that is within the realms or within the realm of possibility within the district? But I'll make a note of that. That's great. Any additional, I'm not going to read, I won't read through all the measures, but if there's any comments, questions, observations, I did want to say a little bit about the equity priority is once we have the all of the measures set, we take a look at where are you currently and in terms of where students are on these measures, and then identify where there are any consequential differences in terms of student groups and their attainment or access on these measures. And then those become kind of focal groups or priority groups to ensure that they're receiving what's the necessary support to close any gaps in terms of access or outcomes. But that's why that's all listed as TBD at this point. Okay, any questions, comments, further comments on the goals or measures?
I don't see any in the room.
Okay, I'm trusting you. Because you're all about this big. So that's great. Okay, so we're going to, this is where we are, right? This is you see draft is on it. We're in our first draft process. We're going to be coming back together. Actually, if we can go back up to the slide with the 3 circles on it, just to close us out.
Yeah.
Almost there. I know, and then perfect. So you'll see that we have like sort of the real meat. We're actually made very good progress with the team. They got really far. The instructional focus team still is going to have a chance to review and chime in and take a look at the work to date. And then we're actually going to be transitioning the core work that we're going to be doing this week is moving to circle number 2 and focusing in on instructional effectiveness, talking about the 4 pillars, which are, you'll hear more about when we come back together. But the team has been great, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the work, in particular, launching the alignment team this week, and then getting our student voice team together. So that's it for us.
We're actually kind of on track. I know we started late, but that's about 60 minutes.
Can I just let everybody know, just put it on your radar, and would love to have as many people get the word out as possible. We'd love to have great participation. Our first community forum is going to take place on Wednesday, October 12th from 6 to 7:30, and I've secured the event room at Brookwood Library for that. And I believe our intent will be to have at least 4 different languages supported with in-person interpretation at that event: Spanish, Vietnamese, and then I'll consult with the experts on the other 2, maybe Russian and Somali. But we really want to make a concerted effort to get as many voices at that as possible. And then there'll be another community forum on the 27th, and that will be virtual. So another opportunity for people to participate if they can't come in person.
Can we come?
Yes,
Okay. I'm not on the court plan.
it's not an official, it's a community event, so yeah.
Do you have a quick blurb you could share with us that?
Well, I'll put it out in next week's hot news, and then you can just grab that.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, and we can share some flyers with you that you can use as well once we get for the online one. That's a real easy with the QR code, and so people can join in.
Hey, Lauren.
Yes.
If cabinet members or board members come to the community event, I would assume you would want us there more as listeners and not as people giving a bunch of input, since we have other opportunities. Is that true, or am I off base on?
I think that's, when folks show up to events, they're contributors as, sort of equal footing. But yes, we would want to, at the community event in particular, defer to hearing from the voices of folks who aren't necessarily have other opportunities to be involved. But I think it's really helpful and great to have as many folks who can turn out, come to hear directly from the participants.
We could ask you to be a facilitator of small groups also.
Yeah, so depending on the size and the turnout, you might be able to help us be a note catcher or note taker, particularly for those in-person times. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
You probably shut up.
I was talking about myself.
Oh, sure you was.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions right now, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you all. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Right. We're not that far off. I know you're early too. Do you want to jump ahead to Elaine since she's here, or just stay on?
I'm ready either way.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
let's have her do it.
All right, we're gonna, since you're here early and we are behind, let's go ahead and we're gonna jump to section G in the agenda. And then go back. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Who wants to start?
I do. I just wanted a chance to thank Elaine. I rarely get a chance to embarrass Elaine in public. But Dr. Elaine Fox is a person in our district who has really helped us, especially during the tough times of the coronavirus pandemic. Really meet the needs of kids who need our support the most. And tonight she's going to talk a little bit about like what we've done over the summer and currently to help students accelerate their learning. But I just wanted a chance on behalf of all of us to thank Elaine for everything that she's done.
Well, thank you. It's definitely been a team effort. It is nothing done by myself. We have an amazing team that I get the privilege of working with every day. That's just phenomenal. And it is by far an absolutely huge team effort. So very appreciative of
And you should know the last applause came about 3 years ago for Adam Stewart, so you're in a rare company.
This is great.
Yeah, it's a big.
It's a good start. Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. And I thought I would just talk a little bit about some of the things that we've learned over the last few years, and then what we are doing with some of the things that we've learned as we progress forward. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Or should I just progress and just, okay, cool. I got it. So what I'm going to do is first go over some of the key feedback pieces that we had, and then I'll move on and kind of talk about what we've done about each of those pieces of feedback. So some of the main feedback that we've received really pertain to our parent interaction, our parent partnership. So we, previous to the last few years, have always done our parent partnership meetings in person. We've only done them in person. We provided always snacks and childcare and activities and things like that, but they have been in person. And so obviously during the course of the pandemic, we had to switch to a virtual format for those, and we had never done that before. And that actually proved to be very successful for us. So we were excited about that. So we got some feedback that that was just a really great thing to continue with that. We also, through our parent partnership, provided a community resource fair. We had that in person also right before the pandemic. We only had one that we got through before that got going. And we had about 14 community organizations that came that support students who experience disability and their families in some way, shape, or form. And really just, we had an opportunity for our staff to walk through. We had an opportunity for parents to walk through and meet with those individuals and just talk with them about what their services were like, and if, you know, there might be any chance that they want to engage with them in the community, just depending on what their needs were. And we got all this fantastic feedback after that first meeting, and then we couldn't meet in person anymore. So we had to continue that online, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing now with that in a few minutes. Another challenge area for us during the pandemic that we got lots and lots of feedback about was our Iep engagement process. So most of you may know that students who experience disability often have an individualized education plan. We call it an Iep. And that plan typically requires a meeting every year, if not more frequently, with school staff. And so we would always have those meetings in person 100% of the time. And that was really kind of the norm that was out there. And during the course of the pandemic, we started to have those meetings virtually. And so we got a lot of feedback that that was something that parents would like us to continue. As always, we have gotten feedback.
A lot of adversity here.
Okay. So we've got a lot of feedback from parents about just the special education process being difficult to understand and complicated. It is complicated. There's lots of nuances involved with it, lots of things like rules and timelines and specific pieces of paper and signatures and things like that that are required. And so we really got a lot of feedback that we'd like to focus on very specific parent groups and giving them opportunities to ask questions and to have very specific interactions, and just being able to understand that process on a little bit more sort of intimate level where we're having an opportunity to really have a conversation about it. We want to move to the next one here. Many of you have heard of our community schools implementation plan, and just in case you haven't, that is a plan where we have students having the opportunity, no matter what their disability, to attend their neighborhood school and receive all of the services that they need. We're super excited about this program. Historically, many students who had specific disabilities have been required to go to another school that maybe wasn't their neighborhood school, where a very specialized program was available to them to meet their needs. We are now in the process of having our community schools implementation plan apply to all of our elementary schools in the Century Theater, as well as the Brown Middle School this year. We're super excited that that's going, and that really allows our students to attend their neighborhood school and have all of their needs met right there. It also allows parents to interact with other parents in the community as they are there and really have start to build those relationships that all other parents have the opportunity to build as well. The other thing that parents had to do before we had the community schools implementation program is often go to another school to meet with their child's case manager. And that also prevents them from having to do that. So we got a lot of feedback about continuing to support that and tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And one of the final pieces of feedback that we got was really about parents being very concerned that our students who experience disability didn't always have the chance to make the progress on their IEP goals virtually during our comprehensive distance learning that some other kids were able to make. And so we've done some things where we have really tried to work on giving kids, excuse me, an opportunity to move forward with those IEP goals. So I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. So now that you've heard a little bit about our feedback, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we've done as a result of that feedback and some of the plans that we have in place. So first thing is we really are going to be moving to hybrid parent nights. So we had many parents that requested that we go back to in-person parent nights, and we think that that's really important too. So we're actually going to be doing that this year. But we are also going to have some virtual opportunities for parents as well. And so we feel really good about that combination, and we don't want to lose the participation that we gained when we had that virtual access, but we also want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of parents who really would like to have that in-person experience. Within that, we are going to really try and have our community resource fair in person again this April. That's the plan. We have about 14 organizations that are set to come, and but in addition to that, in order to have that be a virtual experience for parents, we are going to have those organizations send in about 5-minute videos, and then we kind of string them together and then post them on our website, which is what we did this last year. And that was a fairly effective plan to help our parents who are not able to come in person really understand what those opportunities are in the community. And so we're hoping that that works out well. I'm excited that we go to do both now. We have decided that we are going to continue the option of virtual individual education plan meetings in all of our buildings for all of our families. So when a case manager notices that a student's IEP is coming due for the year, they will talk to the parent and say, hey, it's time for your kiddo's IEP. Would you like to have that virtually? Would you like to participate via Zoom or Google Meets, or would you like to come in person? And it is fine to have hybrid ones as well, where some people are there in person and some people are there online. And we're really excited about the increased in parent engagement that we've seen with that virtual option. We also have a lot more flexibility on time because parents are not needing travel time. They don't always need to leave work, that sort of thing. So it's really nice when they're able to do things from their home sometimes, if that's what's comfortable for them. We also go to parents if they are unable to come to us and they need or would like to have an in-person option. So we kind of have a three-way plan there that we're doing IEPs. One of the things that we're working on this year is really making sure, and we've done this the last couple of years, is that we assign one of our 4 special ed directors to a very specific parent group. So they have a direct liaison and are able to reach out to a person and ask them questions, reach out to a director and ask them questions. They can invite them to one of the meetings that they have to present information. If there's any, if there's concerns or problem solving that needs to happen, we can work on that with them. And just to be really specific, the groups that we are specifically connecting with are the Asian and Pacific Islander Family Engagement Group, the Black Village Family Advisory Committee, the Native American Family Advisory Committee, the Latinx Parent Advisory Committee, and the Special Ed Parent Partnership Group. All of those groups we've been to, we've presented specific information on that complicated special ed process and really try to allow for all the Q&A that's necessary. Some of those groups have requested data, And we've been happy to provide that, and we will continue to do so this year.
You said 4 directors, is that coincidental that we have 4 comprehensive feeder system, or is that how it breaks
It's
down?
just coincidental. So if we had more groups, then we would continue to just have specific directors within those groups as well. So for the community, excuse me, for the community schools implementation plan, we are continuing to work on that. We have put into place several both staff supports and parent supports for that. We are working with our middle schools and working with our teachers there so they can really feel comfortable in terms of providing students universal supports, and they can be served in their middle schools. Almost all of our high schools have the community schools implementation support plan going already. And then over time, we will be moving this gradually across years across the district. We want to make sure that we can support each plan really, really well. And we learn as we go. So this year, we are working specifically with the Century Theater.
Dr. Fox, with the current challenge for staffing, how is that impacting this critical program and those students?
That's a great question. Hopefully it's not too much, because the whole idea is that teachers are able to support any student who walk through their doors. So for example, we are really working with our gen ed teachers and our special ed teachers on supporting as many students as they have in their classroom that need specific supports. And so in theory, there's less of a need for very specific staffing that we might be missing, because all students can support all staff can support all students. We do have some gaps that we're still trying to fill, where we're missing like a teacher or we're missing an assistant, and hopefully that will not be too impactful. It has not yet, but as we move on with those, and if we see that that is being impacted, we'll have to really continue to work to get that staffing in place. And we're already working really hard on it right now.
So we're not overburdening already overburdened teachers.
We should not be doing that right now. And we also have adjusted the staffing in the Century Theater to be a little bit more elevated anyway. And so that should be helpful in that theater as well.
So you're focusing on that feeder, okay.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I had mentioned earlier that we have parents that were really concerned about this idea that their students have not made as good of progress as they could on their IEP goals as they might have if they were learning in person. And so we have an organ administrative rule that was given to us, which came with funding, which is great, where we were able to provide recovery services during this last summer, and we will also be able to provide recovery services this next year in 2023. And so you may already know that in special education, there is a rule for something called extended school year. And that is a program that kids need to qualify for. That is a database program that we run every single summer. We usually have it for 3 weeks, 4 days a week, and it's usually for about a half day. What we did for recovery services this year, which was really great, is we were able to add another 3 hours in the afternoon for students who required recovery services, and they were really able to get about 6 hours of school in the day. So that was really a good program that we used to accelerate learning of students this last summer, and then we will continue to do that next summer as well. Just a couple of other supports that we have. We have a bilingual parent newsletter each semester that's actually multilingual because it goes out under the SMORE system, which is capable of providing information in multiple languages. We did have a committee get together in our student services department that is developing a new continuous improvement plan for our department. That's something that a surprising amount of parents asked us about last year. And they really use it to kind of map what the district and department is focusing on specifically with our students who are experiencing disability. And it's a little bit of a bigger picture goal. We've had several parents request it though. And so it's been great for us because we've spent last spring and this fall really getting our teams together and working on that. And we're just about done with it. That should be posted in the next couple of weeks on the student services website. The goals for this next year focus around inclusion, they focus around collaboration, and they focus around compliance. So you should be seeing that soon. And one more thing that I wanted to share with you that we're doing that is a great new thing, I think. We are partnering with our friends at Northwest Regional ESD, who typically provide all of our services for our early childhood special education programs. So these are 3 to 5-year-olds that experience some sort of disability. They come in and they register with the ESD, and the ESD has done a great job providing them all of their programming for their preschool. And so they collaborate with Hillsboro to do that. They collaborate with the community to do that. But in order to do that, they need to be evaluated. And so this year, for the first year, we are starting to do our own early childhood special education evaluations here. And the ESD is still working with us on providing all of the programming, but we wanted to really make sure that we start early forming a relationship with these parents before they start to have incoming kindergartners into our system. And this also gives us an opportunity to provide very culturally relevant assessments and really work with parents and students in their native language and really try and get to spend the time with them that we need to get to know them so that when they come into our district, we are really ready for them as kinders and already have an established relationship with them. So we're super excited to start this year. It's going to be a great new thing that we're trying. And I really think that that relationship that is then starting to be built as our incoming kinders come are really, that's going to improve the outcomes for our kindergartners in terms of their success, especially in those early weeks of adjusting to kindergarten. So we're very, very excited to do that. We also have the ability to collaborate with the neighborhood preschools that our students are engaging with and continue to work with our friends who are very expert over at Northwest Regional ESD in terms of their programming abilities for our students. So that's something that we're beginning this year and excited to see how it goes. So I think that's what I have to share tonight. And I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
Our strategic plan updated was 3 of 20. So is it about 15% of our students that are on IEPs?
Just under 15% right now. We've actually been reducing that number a little bit, but right around there.
Dr. Fox, on behalf of the parents of all kids who have IEP, my gentle giant is one of them. We definitely appreciate the effort in this. And I remember when I was running for this position, I had several administrators that said, do not forget our children with IEPs and special. And so it's very, very nice to see the effort that's being put towards that. So,
Oh, gosh. Well, thank you. And we appreciate your advocacy as well. It's so important. So thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Back to item C on the agenda, board goals discussion. I didn't see them enumerated in the packet. Do I have to just look for them on second or whatever?
Page 14 of your packet, I think. That's helpful.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Oh, that was the wrong one. Gotcha. All right. So I guess this is just an open discussion that we will have regarding we started this retreat. And are these the appropriate goals for us? And do we want to continue to have these as our board goals for this year?
Page 14.
The board will participate in the development and adoption of a 5-year strategic plan. Feels like we're right in the heart of that. So it was a goal last year and we're still doing it. The board will direct staff to actively engage with students and create feedback loops to foster mutual understanding, increase awareness, and demonstrate action. The board will use student input to improve policies and procedures so they align with the district's value of educational equity and serve to promote success among all students. The last one was the board will seek community engagement opportunities with an emphasis on historically underserved families in order to inform policy decisions, continually improve district systems and processes, and to guide board professional development.
Mark, on goal number one, we should amend that to a 4-year plan.
So that was gonna be,
It would align better with some of the reports that we have to do with the bienniums. Feels like it would be a better fit.
is that what our consultant is working on, a 4-year plan?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Just like, that's a good change then.
Mark,
Yeah.
I have one for point number 2.
Mhm.
So I was going through the packet and reading this. So we have the first, that board, the board will direct staff to actively engage with students, create feedback, et cetera. But our working agreement, the second point under personnel issues says that the board, it's not our role to direct staff. So I would suggest that we change the wording to say the board will encourage staff to actively engage with students, et cetera.
Yeah, we could do that, or we could put direct superintendent. Then I can work with that.
Yeah, the one that's good by me. Anybody have feedback on that?
I agree with everyone on
You have a preference, Wendy, which one?
I do.
Anybody else have any feedback on these?
I can't see the hands in the room, but I have a thought.
Oh, sorry.
I like the second goal, the feedback loop. And I think that we saw in that report from Performance Fact about that, that's still something that we need to improve on. So I would like to see us continue that as a goal or something similar.
Yeah, I think it'll stay in there. It'll just be, I think everything after, it said the board will direct staff, the board will direct the superintendent to actively engage with students, or the board will encourage staff that, so I think all the rest stays.
Yeah, I like that part. I think the feedback loop wording is really important. So I don't want to lose that. I just wanted to say, but perfect.
Oh, cool. Yep. Good point. Anybody else?
Rose, when do we have these on for launch? Is it later this month?
Regular session in 2 weeks?
Yes,
That would make the most sense to do it early in the year.
Yeah.
we try to do it early in the year.
Yeah.
If there's a lot that needs to be changed, then we might come back with the second one, but
How about we put out the changes in the board update? Just to make sure.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And I like your notes about action items and board updates. You were Kathy, or whoever's doing that. Like, when the board updates, like, there's a bunch of information here, but these are like 2 things you need to do.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, look,
I'm happy, that's a key.
I'm appreciating that. Yeah.
So just to recap, the first one, we're anticipating changing that to 4 years to meet the, say, this biennial.
And to match what we've engaged the consultant to do.
Okay. And then the second one is not so much the board will direct the staff, but the superintendent will direct staff to actively engage. Dot.
I kind of like encourage staff, but I think probably direct superintendent is probably better.
Well,
Whichever you
Because
prefer.
that's really what we do. Right, like our job is to direct you, so I mean,
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
yeah, I guess that. I kind of like encourage staff better, but I think probably it's more appropriate to say direct superintendent.
Okay.
My thought. All right. Next item is a discussion of our working agreements, and Monique had some suggestions. They were in your packet on a, oh, Rose brought them out? Oh, good. All
Do
right,
you want to talk through?
yeah, you wanna, yeah,
Sure, for the top one, in there, I'm just wanting to break up the sentence. Everything's written the same way. It's just changing it a little bit grammatically. Where it's not one long big sentence. So, it's just ending it after administration and starting again with they will expect the confidentiality. So just sentence structure.
Lisa, we have it all, Rose handed it to us. Do you have it from the packet? Do you have access to it? Okay.
Everyone good with that?
Yeah, that's
Okay. Okay, next one, Monique.
Okay, so then the bottom one, on here, the last sentence under current says the superintendent will counsel board members one-on-one when necessary. And then suggestion is to change it to the board chair, just because of the relationship of the board to the superintendent and lost my train of thought.
Do you want to share the context of why
Yeah.
I originally
Yeah.
said that? Mike?
So when,
Thank you.
when Hamid sent this suggestion, here's why it reads the way it currently reads, is that probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, the board was not comfortable calling each other out when they were off track or when they're overstepping or not in the right lane, or maybe they're having a less than polite conversation that took place between a couple of people. And so they asked me to fill in that role, which was awesome. let me tell you. So it became kind of my role, if someone raised a concern, just to share the concern with the board. So that's why it's written the way it is. And so I mean, those times have definitely changed. It has not been like that for a while. So this would, if there were, let's say there were something pleasant that went on, or there was something that needed to be shared, Monique is suggesting it'd be more appropriate for the board chair to do that redirection as opposed to me.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable assuming that responsibility. I don't know that I want to encumber future board chairs with that role if they're not comfortable with that, but that's what we're figuring out now. You can always change language for whatever group you got, right? So,
What if the issue happens with the board chair?
all right.
We'll have a seat.
I don't know if it's
Good point.
that prescriptive, but.
Yeah, no,
I would think it would fall to the vice chair,
Okay.
would be my assumption. Yeah.
Not that anything would happen.
Lisa, yep.
Yeah, I guess I would not feel comfortable with it just saying board chair, having been the board chair. I don't think that that's the role of the board chair. And I also worry because we have had times where we have a relatively rookie board. And one of the benefits of having the superintendent in that role when necessary is that institutional memory of, just even with this example and the working agreement, right? And so I wouldn't be comfortable with just saying board chair. Perhaps a compromise might be superintendent or board chair, and then when appropriate, they can connect and decide maybe what makes the most sense. And so that would be a compromise I would be comfortable with.
And for what it's worth, during some of our conversations related to this, in no way is this intended to supersede or impact or disrupt the one-on-one conversations that Mike has with board members on a regular basis. So I would expect that those continue to happen, and should there be any issue, I think Mike would be comfortable bringing that up. I see what you're saying, and yeah, that's my thing. Like I appreciate you bringing that up. Like I don't know that every board chair would be comfortable doing that. So yeah, I'm fine doing it, but I think I like your suggestion. Yeah.
So
And that kind of gets to Sheehan's problem too. Like if I'm the problem, you just go to Mike, right?
So just grammatically. So grammatically, if you looked at the last sentence, the board chair and or the superintendent would counsel board members one-on-one when necessary or as needed. And then that way you have some flexibility, you've got different people to go to. But what I will say is this, is there is no language that is prescriptive to prohibit us from going to other resources if we needed it. So I was just happy that there was no prescriptive language that said we can't go to anybody else.
Yeah.
So I would love to see, I think I agree with Lisa, we could do the board chair and or superintendent. And we'll counsel and leave it as is, and then that way we don't get too prescriptive about what resources can or cannot be engaged upon if we need the help or the guidance.
You be okay with that, Lisa? Yeah, everybody else be okay with that?
Maybe one more
And
suggestion.
there are working groups, like this is our
Yeah.
open discussion. We can, Erica could choose not to sign it because she wasn't here to help craft it, but that's on her.
Maybe one other suggestion is, maybe we change the one-on-one, but that could sound like the individual. meetings.
Oh, yeah, that's what got me confused.
That's
Like,
yeah.
like at first, when Monique brought it up, I was like, well, I don't want to stop having one-on-ones. Cause and we use that term to mean something pretty specific,
Yeah,
so,
so we'll change that word.
yeah, okay.
No,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
drop it. Drop the one-on-one,
Oh, board members when necessary, yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
and then that
Or
opens
directly
you
or
up,
whatever,
and
yeah.
then you don't get too prescriptive, so just drop.
Yeah,
it.
because we do use that term sort of for a
In a different
specific
way,
thing,
yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. We'll make these changes and we'll have them ready for the regular session at the end of this.
Yeah, and you go with this?
I'm good with it.
Okay, everybody's,
Thank you.
all right. Next up, staffing update.
Right, let's stand up, people.
Oh.
We've been sitting way too long. And it's also stretch
I
here.
mean, I can do
I
that.
see that. You make this exciting,
Yeah.
because Audrey is after me. So super exciting. All right,
I'm just thinking about
I'm here
10
to talk
minutes.
about the staffing needs that we're facing. And this isn't just a district agency issue. This is something that's across the metro area, across the state, across the country. And so I want to talk about some things just in regards to, if you could go to the next slide, that'd be awesome. Just to talk about licensed staff. So as of Friday, September 9th, we only had 2 classroom openings across the district, and the other openings were TOSA or coaches, instructional coaches. So that's great news. We're filling our licensed staff positions at a great rate right now. I do want to speak to 3 areas.
Would a TOSA or a coaching staff likely come from classroom? It's more likely we have to backfill that. in classroom.
Yeah, sometimes we will have to
Right.
backfill that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted, tonight I'd like to get through this so that I'll take
Oh, I
questions
see.
at the end.
Stop, okay.
Because I did have a slide for questions.
Okay.
Question mark. I want to speak to kind of 3 areas that have been hard to fill. And for custodians, we have put out an RFP for temporary staffing through agency work for custodians, so we can fill those hard to fill positions. And then as those come in to be filled, we will start to back off from our agency use. And we did this in the spring to help support particularly our night custodian positions, so that we can ensure that schools are claimed and all of those pieces. And I spoke previously about that long-term effect. It's a short-term piece of filling in for your day custodian for part of the time when they're on vacation or on sick leave. But if you have to do that long-term wise, we just want to make sure that we're supporting our staff in that way. And then for the facilities department, we've been working with, looking at how we can recruit groundskeepers and maintenance. And we're working with the supervisors to really broaden these efforts to target advertising. And then just also kind of thinking about what are some different ways that we can maybe draw upon students and maybe some career pathways for some folks, because they're really, for groundskeepers, you don't need a certain skill set. We can build that for you, and we have folks that may be interested in that, but maybe not understanding all of the scope of the work, and so we're working to broaden that. And then with our bus drivers, we are really actively recruiting. We've done some things to increase salary, initial placement. We're doing negotiations. And I just want to say, I really value the work that we have with HCU in regards to the conversations and the collaboration. And I think that we're making efforts to improve that. And we've already seen about 15 different folks apply since we've made the salary increasement for bus drivers. And so that is one way that we're working to address that. And we just really appreciate that, because we know that all of those efforts are there because we want to create a full and comprehensive opportunity for our students. That is super important to our work and our value. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I was thinking about all of the things that we've been doing in terms of a responsive recruitment plan, and thinking about broadening our efforts through various platforms of social media, sending out mailers to everyone that lives in our attendance area. You may see local outreach. You may have driven by school and saw, oh, there was a sign up there on the reader board about postings. And just really thinking about how we remove barriers for applicants. It used to be you'd go to Indeed and then you'd have to kind of to get to HSD. Now we just one click, you're there and you can apply. So just really thinking about ways that we can remove barriers. And then we're working and consulting with an HR marketing firm to think about how we can advertise and broadly try to diversify our outreach in regards to hard to fill positions. So I just wanted to give a quick overview for that, and I may be coming back in the future and talking on this topic. If you go to the next slide, I will now take questions.
No, anybody?
Good job, everyone. All right, you may
So,
sit down.
so about how many TOSA coaching positions do we have open?
I'm going to look, and I want to say it's like less than a handful right now.
So it wouldn't be burdensome if we chose a classroom teacher for that role, but
Yeah, we
because
have.
we're more likely to be playing a classroom role than that.
Potentially, yes. And then sometimes what's interesting is there's a lot of people that are moving to the area. And sometimes they're moving and they are moving from out of state and maybe interested in it. So we've had a variety of folks that are applying to these positions, not only in.
And I think one thing, just so you know, that we do for those tips and cooking, if they're internal, we obviously wait until the classroom is filled,
Sure.
so that we wouldn't transition and just pull somebody out. We are very mindful of transitioning that in a way that allows the school to get what they need to fill that role that might be vacant.
That makes sense. On the one slide, you mentioned mailers. The only sort of context I have with that in a campaign, and the campaign is very expensive. Would it be very expensive for us to do that?
Yes, it is very expensive, but it also is an expense to not spend money in that fashion.
It's a good investment.
Yes, it's an investment. And I also think about social media. It just, I don't know, I have lots of ideas that I'm pursuing, and I will have more to share as we have discussions with the marketing firm and thinking about how we can market in really innovative ways.
And it is like universal across the whole country. right?
Yes, it is universal. Well, I think we learned earlier that it was like 1.6 openings for every person up there, so,
Yeah, not just our industry
right.
in our region, but not just us, our industry nationwide,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for the update.
And now for summer school.
Summer programs. Summer programs. So I just wanted to celebrate our summer program that we offered this summer. Like Mark shared earlier, our staff and teachers came off of probably one of their most challenging years that they've ever experienced, but we managed to also pull off a very robust summer school program. So I just wanted to highlight the different ones that we offered. We had a high school that was really focused on credit attainment. Middle school ran a summer school that was really focused on engagement, so students that felt a little more disconnected from the building than we would have liked them to be, and an enrichment. And elementary school really focused on engagement and connected that to math and literacy for their side. Elaine talked a little bit about this. We have our extended school year that's offered by Student Services. We've always offered that in the past. But then in addition to that, we offered recovery services for students that she talked about. And then we also have our bilingual education program, which is our students that are served in rural, students that are served through Migrant, and students that are served through our English language. So, so to the next slide. Okay, so just wanted to kind of give the highlights of the school-based programs. High school included HOA or Hillsboro Online and Oak Street Campus. They had a 3-week program, 2 to 3 week program, depending on the school, and then had also additional support throughout this summer. We had roughly 801 students attend. our summer school program, which is significantly higher. So we had funding, and I'll talk about that a little bit down towards the bottom, but through our summer school grant for learning acceleration, which allowed us to really offer a extremely robust program for our students, which is amazing. We had 967 semester credits attained during that course throughout the summer. And then in middle school, we had the 2-week program that we talked about with 274 middle school students that attend, which is really, haven't had a middle school summer school program in a long time. And so being able to do that was really great. Really targeted 6th graders that were coming to them, as well as 7th graders that were currently with them. So that was a great opportunity for us. In elementary school, also a 2-week program. Again, something that we have not typically offered. We sometimes do like little jumpstart programs for kindergarten, or if a school had extra money in their budget, they would do a little bit of a summer school program. But really, this was all 26 of our elementary schools offering a 2-week program, really targeting and focused on literacy and math. And at our elementary schools, we had over 1,100 students attend, which is phenomenal. Awesome opportunity for high school students to join, high school interns. So we were able to do a partnership to get credit hours for them to have intern support and pay them. My own daughter was one of them, and learned a lot. Learned a lot. So again,
She's going to go into teaching now. Okay. Never mind.
She also, I think, had 2nd graders, so there was comments about herding cats, and so, but she did great, and I think, again, a great opportunity for our high school students to just support that work and for us to pay them for that. So if you go to the next slide. Yeah. Oh, Mayor Calloway was reading, yes, he was a guest speaker at a couple of our schools. Extended school year and recovery services is a program that Elaine talked about. We had 600 plus students that we invited, and about 206 students attended 3 weeks in July. And again, really ESY is focused more on maintaining those skills of regression, and then recovery services, like Elaine talked about, just focusing on recovering students on IEP goals during distance learning. And what was great about that is because we've always had the ESY grant, so extended school year grant, but then we had recovery services and our summer school grant. So again, 206 students that we were able to serve for 3 weeks. And some of our students that really, for the extended school year, really needed that support. And like she talked about, with having the 6 hours, it was amazing for students. And you can see the staffing that was needed to support that group of students as well. Hop to the next slide. Our other program that we're able to run this summer, a very large program, is our bilingual enrichment program. And we invited 800 students to participate in that from PK to grade 11. And we had about 650 students attend. And it was phenomenal. It was built up all of Witch Hazel and part of South Meadows. And we were able to utilize our staff. There was staff and bilingual educators. We also had some of our visiting teachers from Mexico and Guatemala come, and they were able to kind of transition to how the U.S. does public education and have an opportunity to connect with other staff members and just build that community for themselves here. This was funded through the summer school grant as well as Migrant and EL funding that we have. So again, an opportunity to just build a bigger program. Same thing, we also had high school students that were able to intern the month of July in these programs. I want to say we had about 120 over the course of the 3 to 4 weeks. So I think just again, amazing opportunity for our students to just be part of experiences, to learn if this is a pathway for them potentially or not. And then also our BTP, which is our bilingual teacher pathway. So sometimes we call those our blue scholars. These are our students that are in college currently studying to become educators at Western, and they were able to come and they participated in teaching. Got to see some of them lead some lessons, learn to have gradual release with students, and also just learn some great systems and structures from some amazing educators. So again,
Rose, is your daughter in this picture?
She is, she's right there on the bottom. She's sitting at the table. Oh, and brought home blue scholars who don't come home to their mothers anymore, so.
So again, just wanted to highlight just the amazingness of our staff and our students to pull off. I think so. If you think about the total, it's over 2,000 students that we served, which is a substantial amount of our student population to be able to offer just again an enriching and engaging program for them. So just wanted to highlight it. So kudos to our staff that worked this. It was hard but fun work. So just wanted to share. I think that was my last slide too. And are there any questions?
Questions, Roger?
I do have a question.
Go for
For the school-based programs, was it open to all students or were those also invitations only?
We did invitations on those because it was really primarily targeted at students that we felt were behind in certain areas or maybe needed additional supports or maybe we felt were not as connected during the school year. So really trying to target students that were just to do that learning acceleration that we needed to do. Great question.
I was wondering, how students, specifically high school students would be involved in, the summer school program specifically for elementary school kids. So where can most of these high school students sign up?
So we pushed out, it got pushed out through counselors and administrators and we put it all in hot news and it just was a simple application that they could pick up and apply and was actually great. They had students, it was a great learning opportunity for high school students because they had to apply, they had to come in, they had to, you know, share their driver's license and like learn how to set up an account and then get a badge and all that stuff. So I think it was just a great like kind of foray into applying for a job.
Because I think if we want to expand the opportunity of getting high school interns to help run the summer program, I think that talking to counselors and the counselors, talking to specific clubs that might be interested in education would really help make the pool applicants a bit more diverse.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you.
So the participation numbers include what is traditionally our migrant education program.
Yes, that would be in the BEP.
Yeah, okay, all right. I love that we hired a high school student. Just love that. Separately, did we have any transportation challenges in our summer programs? It was for what it's worth, it was a fairly extensive conversation of bargaining regarding drivers in the summer.
I didn't hear many, we also challenges, but we also timed things out so they were spread apart. So we really did high school from the get-go in June, kind of catching kids right away as they were coming out. And then we did ESY recovery services and the EP program were done in July. And then the K-8 school-based programs were done the first 2 weeks of August. So we really tried to spread that out and then determine whether or not students needed transportation. And what was great this year is last year we had to get this up and running very quickly. It was a little stressful. And this year we knew it was coming. And so we actually had time to plan. And so Carol, you know, Hatfield, our transportation out was amazing in terms of like just setting up parameters of when we need to get names. So I think it didn't feel as rushed this year as it did last year. I would say last year probably just felt rushed and just a lot happening to figure out in basically like 4 weeks time. Whereas Travis and his team do an amazing job. Now that we kind of know they were already starting in January, what our plans were for the summer.
Connor, do we know if a lot of our drivers or exclusively our drivers provided summer transportation? Like, I remember being a big conversation about like,
It was all.
if we need a bus in the summer, which should be one of our people drive.
It was our.
It was our drivers.
Great, awesome. And the robustness of our summer program last year, this year, sort of depended on special funding allocation from the governor. If we want to continue this, we would need that again.
And we're about to get it to go. And we'd like to be notified on a doable timeline.
Yes.
You say this year was doable?
Yeah.
Yes, it was really for our principals, it was such a smoother transition for them to be able to offer this, and I think it went so much better.
So how is the invitation process managed in terms of you say, okay, this is how many spots we have, how much resources we have, we're identify the students who could benefit most from it, and then we'll reach out to their families.
Mhm. And you know, some students, they're on vacation, they're going out of, you know, like you're just working with that, but yeah. You start with the target list and you work through it. Some schools were specific to grade levels, like we, the and where they saw maybe grade levels that had more concerning data than others. So really focusing on the grade levels. Other schools looked just may have targeted specifically literacy skills. And it also was dependent on the teacher that was working summer school too, because we were also asking our staff to come back and work after a challenging year. So we also were willing to tailor some of the program to the skills that they wanted to focus on. Work at.
And Patrick,
Go ahead.
the ESY, the extended school year and the migrant programs are extra federal funds that come to us specifically for students who qualify for this program. So sometimes there's a perception, we did summer school for those kids and not those kids. Well, some of that's federally funded and students are entitled to those services during the summer. With the governor's allocation helped us reach X number of more students through the enrichment programs.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Have we made a policy option package for that, or is that how you guys get it? I mean, that's how we get the funds from the government, but I didn't know how you guys do it.
What was the question?
I think
Did
it's
we
more
do a
of,
policy option package submission to legislature to get more money to do exactly that again, or we don't have to?
We don't have this.
We don't have this.
This money was set aside for this from the legislature. Yeah.
yeah, and it was, well. Yeah, I think it was. Pandemic was probably the reason or whatever. Last year for credit recovery, because we can find kids in buildings, and this year for credit recovery, because I would hope that the legislation, our government understand how valuable it is to be funded going forward.
So I guess my question is, was it a single year funding? Was it biennium funding?
No, it was one-time funds last year. And then and they did it in May.
Yeah, like the first year, 2 years ago, we learned in May-ish that we had this much money to invest in our summer programs.
Right.
And that was a really incredible lift. And then this year it came out earlier. We were trying to figure out today when it was.
It was February-ish or something like that, yeah.
So am I too concerned about the change
Oh, yeah.
in governorship? Because
Not just changing governorship, but
and legislature, so right, so that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
Emergency dollars, the ARPA dollars, now ESSER dollars through the state are gonna dry up as well. So
Yeah.
if there's not a sustainable funding stream for this type of programming for some.
We should be concerned.
Yeah, we should be concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Yes.
to advocate for this again.
It's a thing that the advocacy committee of the board should discuss.
Absolutely.
But the thing I'd add just to like temper our enthusiasm is that like for Carol and her team and Casey and facilities. Huge shout out to them. They work year round at school now. And so one of the things that was a restriction on us is that they need to clean and repair the buses. And so they need a couple weeks during the summer to actually do their job of maintenance, which used to happen during a bigger summer.
Yeah.
And now summer lasts a couple weeks at the very end, and they do everything they had to do while convincing X number of drivers to drive for the other part. So we're staffed up on a 9-month school year. And so as we look forward to more summer programs, which I'm an advocate for, we do need to look at our infrastructure like transportation, custodial, because there's a human cost. You know, with a lot of these programs. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
As we asked.
You're right.
Well, we did discuss creating some full-time driver positions. Did we end up going that route?
Not for the summer.
It was less about summer. It was, part of the
Full-time
discussion
year-round.
bargaining was. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. It wasn't a lot, but the drivers are 9-month or 10-month positions.
Oh, yeah.
And there was discussion of, would the district benefit from creating 2 full-time driver positions that are 12-month employees with full benefits, but now we're at full benefits already, right? So,
For the
7-hour
employees.
for 7-hour employees are at full benefits already, so, so would there be a benefit to having a few full-time drivers year round? And would any drivers be interested in that? So did we end up exploring that or not?
I don't remember.
I don't think we have explored that, I think kind of initially, but because of the need of what we currently have, that's where our focus has been, is filling in the needs of, this first school year. And I think, we've had conversation with Carol in regards to that, but we haven't like dug deeply into it because our focus has been filling these current.
And because we knew in advance enough that we were going to need drivers in the summer, we had enough able to volunteer as opposed to it being a last minute request of, oh, anybody want to work tomorrow?
Yeah, and I was just saying to Casey that there was more of an appetite this summer for that, just because people felt they could give that time and energy to participate.
And I think the one piece too, the way the summer is set up to, rather than having a 12 months, I can have a choice if I'm the bus driver. Maybe I just want to work the high school summer school and only work those 3 weeks and then I can take. So it would, our drivers have options of when they wanted to, like, do you want to do the EEP program? Do you want to do the August program? So I think it allowed them shape and place in that. And so I think we had, like Connor said, just great drivers that were willing
Yeah,
to
and
take a 2-week shift or a
I would say in bargaining, there was some discussion of was the previous year funding being announced in May, did it create an anomaly situation? And we all sort of had hoped maybe it did, and it seems like things normalized a little bit this summer when we were prepared for that.
we are much better when you're prepared.
So it is for sure.
So I guess my final question then is, I just want to understand what the next step is to make sure that happens again. I mean, that is phenomenal effort for 3 months. I mean, for summer, it is. It's phenomenal. How do we do it again?
The IEP program will happen on ESY or whatever, they'll have it on.
Yeah,
Uh,
right, because the federal money that comes
Yeah.
all the time.
That worked for sure.
It'll have to either the legislature will have to allocate those dollars, or the governor will have to find one-time funding again for one summer.
And then what we do on our side is we prepare a team and appoint people at each school. And then as soon as the money comes through, if it does, then we send up a bat signal and we say, we've got the money now, we put our plan in place. And we right size it to figure out how much the allocation can be per school or whatever.
Is OSBA putting any concerted effort for these legislative efforts?
I don't know.
I haven't heard that yet. We typically have, as we get closer to
Yeah, we're gonna have
the
the,
elections, though, probably the next 2 months will probably be hit up to have a meeting with the other board members in the region.
that's in October. It's
So
already
it's already
scheduled.
set.
It's the,
That typically is what happens at that meeting, where we start to crystallize the legislative issues that we want to advocate for.
Wednesday, October 19th.
Because I would imagine our neighboring school districts also had access to these funds and
Yeah.
likely also did this type of summer program and also saw the benefits of it. So I'm curious to see if this would be also one of their district priorities.
I think it will be. I mean, the truth of the matter is that we've got students off track from graduation. And at percentages that we haven't in years past. You know, obviously the pandemic caused that. So we're going to need these dollars to remedy that situation for not just this year, but for the foreseeable future.
So the 19th, OSBA, Richard and Lori will be here to regionally have a conversation at Northwest CSD. What is that one? Yeah. At like a OSBA regional meeting, so it'll be all the boards in Washington County are invited to participate. I got numerous emails from them in here, spam folder. Any other questions? Thank you so much. Great job. Had to summer. All right, that's it, right? We did Dr. Fox, so discussion time. Well, are any of the other student reps online? Okay.
Oh, that's me.
Discussion time. You're welcome to share with us whatever you would like to.
Well, it's all about me now, so.
Oh, sorry, manufacturing month, it was something we had discussed, we have the list of proclamations that we make every year, and we sort of briefly discussed having an ad hoc one because of the internship opportunities and the press we're getting and whatnot, but it seems like it's not really a thing that gained regional traction, so just no need to talk. Sorry, V, go ahead.
Oh,
You can just ignore your picture up there while you're talking.
Oh.
This is coming up next.
Wow.
oh my gosh. look at that. Sorry for my kind of blanks. Today was like the first meeting officially for my health science officers. So I'm also the co-president of my health science club. And so today we just began to like figure out like all the nuts and bolts of like, okay, what are the minimums to like get a cord letter and whether or not we should still help, whether or not we should still be in either or of like, oh, should we get students to volunteer for 12 hours, 25 hours, or should we get them and go to HOSA, which is like a state competition for health sciences. It's HOSA stands for Health Science Occupation Students of America. And so we're just deciding a lot of the nitty gritty, and we're really excited to partner with our engineering club for something for our club rush. So that's something I'm really thinking about right now, and my marching band's starting up. We're almost finished learning the entire our entire show. So, and our first competitions may be in like 11 days. So I'm really excited about that.
Marching band is a whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are you a junior or a senior?
I'm a senior.
Senior. All right. So for what it's worth, you will get a card for doing this.
What?
For being a student rep. You get a graduation.
Yeah.
I'll take it, okay? It'll be cool. I'm gonna be the only one in my class, the only person in class to actually have that board.
It's a big,
Wait, which school you?
I go to Century.
Oh, and I will have a pair of jumps.
Oh.
Is it green? No.
No, it's
Teal.
That's the deal. Yes. Can't wait to get that.
Yeah, I think you can thank Jessica for that one. And she's one who advocated for the board. Yeah. Superintendent stuff.
So we're going to use our time to show this video. We are,
Oh, wow.
as we know, we're
That's world premiere.
Holy cow.
as we all know, we're proud of our student reps and the fact that we have student representation, and they create great feedback for us. So we want to memorialize that a little bit and to use it as an advertising opportunity down the road. So we want to show you this video. And before we push go though, John, thank you for being our tech tonight. We rely on people volunteering to work a little overtime. And so we appreciate you being here. Don't hesitate to sign up again.
Yeah.
All right.
We're in a little bit of a grid setup here tonight. Because we need to prepare, so we want to make sure what it's.
Just want to know who you thought about this and called it an hour. I mean, like David Lights from eyes.
It seems like the way the can or configuration came together. So I said,
Hi, my name is Iep Alonso Garcia. I'm a junior at Liberty High School. Hello, my name is Kaylee McGuire and I'm a senior at Liberty High School. Hi, my name is V. I'm a senior and I go to Century
Oh, what a time to buffer.
High School. And we're your Hillsboro School District student reps. Like, get my voice heard, and like not just myself, but like others in my community who just don't like feel comfortable to speak up. So I would be like the resource, like to like stand up for and see all around me, and you know, just learn from the experience, but also teach people like, oh, this is this and this is that. So that's just a wonderful opportunity. Why I wanted to get involved is because I think that intent versus impression, you know, can be very different. I think that people in school district boards, you know, they come with the best intention, but sometimes, you know, impression is important to see on how, you know, students feel or what students see on the resources that are provided. Different current events can influence how those students are feeling, or, you know, different needs of schools. So I think it's very important. That's why I wanted to be involved, is to, you know, be able to speak that of what the impression is for the kids, and then see how we could either pursue those ideas or, you know, kind of shift around.
I am a student who also works with
the Hillsboro Special Education Program because I am a student who's been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and so it's really important. It's really meaningful to me that people can hear my voice and understand that I am also a person. I'm also a student who needs resources. It's important to let students know that they can exercise their own voices and that it's okay to have an opinion about something. So as a Latinx woman, just don't be afraid to speak up. I had that trouble when I was younger, but just I'm trying to overcome it. That process is a little difficult, but it's like encouraging me. I have a lot of people, a lot of mentors, teachers to help you out throughout your pathway, throughout your future. Whatever you want to be, just keep on going. Don't give up. Yeah.
I think all of us are going into or aspire to be in very male-dominated fields. So I think that if anything, just try to get into those positions where you can advocate, whether, we're still in high school and we're getting in places such as a school board to try to be able to advocate for students and our, wellness and our education. So I think it's really important to take those opportunities and not to fray away from them because you feel as though, you're not equipped.
Not to assign work, but I'd love to see what they say at the end of the year.
That was really good.
Well, that was really good. Nice.
Nice job.
Great job, man. That's it?
That's it.
That's your whole thing?
I'm not going after that.
That's. Then how about Lisa? You want to start?
Sure, I can start. I don't have anything in particular, but I love that video and I really appreciate you guys were made for the screen. So what a lovely ad, and thank you very much.
Right. Start over here. Monique, do you have anything to add tonight?
Just say it's great to be back and see everyone and start off a new year and hopefully they're a lot smoother than last year. Yeah. Lots of struggles last year, but we can do it.
Right. Sheehan, anything to add tonight?
It's exciting to see all the students back in school. I loved seeing all the posts on the HSD Facebook page. So love that. Doesn't sound like anyone in this room had a summer based on all the presentations today. So hopefully you all got some good rest. Other than that, it's good to be back.
Patrick, anything to add tonight?
I guess just briefly, I'd say I know it's our first board meeting since the reports about the NAEP biennial report came out and showed some significant decline in national proficiency. I know some of our constituents will see the media reports and be interested in how Hillsboro School District is doing because of that. And I think that the early literacy declines that were shown over the past 2 years in that report are particularly concerning to a lot of folks because of how predictive that can be. So it was wonderful to hear about what some of our schools, so we can reassure our constituents that we're working hard to give those who need the most help coming out of the pandemic, the help they need. So I just appreciate that we have a district filled with people who I know that there's the Collaborative for Student Growth report recently showing there are signs of a rebound from the pandemic, and so that's really encouraging. But we continue to work with great urgency, and so I really appreciate everyone for doing that.
Nancy, anything to add to that? All right. Again, big kudos to the tech department. We not only did we do all this, but I mean, Dr. Fox made it pretty clear how integrated technology has become and parents choosing the virtual option. And I'm guessing that doesn't happen without considering the great department. So thank you all for doing that. Yeah, and thanks for helping out tonight. Come back again. Yes, glad to be back. And right, so I already covered so October 19th. I'm your LPC representative on the OSBA legislative policy committee. So yeah, I think I have to talk at that thing, which shouldn't be a heavy lift, but, so yeah, please come if you want to interact with board members from throughout the state, and at some point we'll start to put together our advocacy committee. So people who are interested, I think student representation can participate in that. I know, I think Kayla mentioned an interest in doing some of that too, right? So, cool. That's all I have. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.